One of the more interesting questions, or one of the more interesting problems that you might face in the future in Star Citizen is, how do you find other players in space? Now, there are the usual places like Grim Hex, or maybe, a certain satellite, comm array, whatever, where players may congregate. But there is a wide and open universe here. Plenty of resources to hunt in the asteroid belts, plenty of areas to kind of cover. And how do you find other players in that area? If you're looking to do scientific exploration for science reasons and nothing else, how do you find another player out in the asteroid belts? And better yet, how does a player who wishes not to be found kind of disguise themselves? We've heard some ideas, some vague intonations of what may come, but it's been a long time since we've really kind of looked into this, and we've really kind of gotten any real material answers as to which way CIG is going with this. Now, we do have the ping, right? The basic ship ping, you hit tab, boom, the wave goes out, and it spots things that are within a certain sphere close to your ship, or it highlights, oh, this might be something here, this might be something there. But when we're talking about Star Citizen, we are talking about truly vast distances. And I think that there's, when you see the ping, it's kind of dull, and it's kind of a very one-dimensional basic mechanic, like bang, it goes out and you get a return. And more than that, obviously when you send out a ping, you basically signal to your position to anyone else who's out there. And so it's not really a mechanic that I find that really suits Star Citizen. I feel that it's something that maybe if you were very close to something, you're trying to, locate a very specific thing in a very near area, maybe. But over the great distances that exist in Star Citizen, I think we have to look elsewhere. Now, I used to think that sound would be an interesting mechanic to play with. In the way that we have a missile operator mode, we could have a sensors operator mode. And that person would exist in maybe, a virtual world. They would have a helmet over their face or whatnot, and it would block out their view, and they would get kind of like a disembodied view where, the ship is digitally, removed, and they can kind of almost be like a stellar, like their own personal stellar observatory floating around within the ship. And, they can look out in all directions and see around them. But more than that, I think that, with video games now, we have the technology, and often a lot of these engines have the technology, as well as, the Lumberyard engine has this as well, where it can create false, like night vision or thermal or infrared, and which is often a mechanic used in certain first-person shooter games. And I think that there is a good precedent here to kind of play with multiple versions of this, and it's something that actually works with, real astronomical observations. Now, for most of us, we go outside at night, we look up, we might see a few stars speckled here and there if we're in and around the city, so to speak, but hundreds of kilometers away out in the country, you start to see a lot more. But when you see some of the images that are collected by space telescopes, they actually show so much detail that you think that, oh man, that can't even be real. How come I can't see that, What our eyes can capture, even with the biggest budget, is only a small wavelength of what's out there. There's infrared, there's X-ray, there's so much going on, there's so much information and detail being rendered to us, but we can't perceive it because it doesn't come to us as visible light, or if it does, it comes to us so weakly that we just can't pick it up unless we have very specialized equipment. So into the future, into Star Citizen, we could probably play around with this idea, and we could use this kind of sensor operator mode or observer mode to allow players to search around their ship over much vaster distances and move through different spectrums and different wavelengths to isolate things that may or may not be a target. To a certain degree, like, the human eye is basically like a passive photo sonar, almost. Instead of listening for sound, we're collecting the light waves that come back to us. But if we can explore different frequencies or different wavelengths of light, I think that would be a mechanic that it would be something that would be difficult, but difficult in a way that's rewarding, that's engaging, not something that just like kind of hammers you over the head like some game mechanics like to do, or that are overly cumbersome. But something like this, like allowing somebody to kind of zoom in and zoom out and switch from different modes, from X-ray to infrared to visible light, and maybe overlay one or two against the other to kind of go like, oh, okay, there is something here, or there is something over there. I think that would be a very interesting way to explore the sensors interface, and that's technically something that is already built into the Lumberyard engine. And I think that would be a really cool way to kind of hunt down enemies, whether it's PvE or whether it's PvP, or maybe even for mining. If you're in a large mining ship and there's certain visible signatures or certain heat signatures that come off of certain asteroids versus others in the environment that you're in, and if you're skilled enough and you can differentiate those things, then maybe from 100 kilometers away you can say, oh, that's a really good asteroid. That's got a heck of a lot of gold or iron or platinum or iridium in it. We should go over there. That, I think, would be a really interesting thing, especially if you could place a visible marker, just a directional marker. It doesn't have to show depth so much as you're kind of giving, the pilot or the navigator, head in this direction, go this way, and keep going in this line, and I'll let you know as we get closer. I think that would be a really cool way to kind of play with what light can show us in the Star Citizen universe, and in a way kind of move away from the pinging mechanic and move much closer to a passive and more a more skill-based, a more skill-based mechanics, a skill that's learned organically and players pick up on it, rather than, as long as you're within X amount of kilometers, push ping button, ping goes out, bang, there's your target, go. I think that Star Citizen deserves a more complicated, but at the same time, I think a more rewarding mechanic for using sensors. And I do think that, that maybe even a wavelength that just covers straight radio waves or whatnot. Not exactly my field of expertise, mind you. So before people just start raging in the comments like, oh, actually, technically that's, this or that. But you know what I'm trying to say? Like the point that I'm trying to get across. That if you can take visible light and then you can overlay different information that is coming in on different wavelengths, infrared and all that, then I think that would be a really cool way to kind of present sensors. But I think that it would be better as kind of, like you get into the sensor system, it kind of puts a mask or an overlay into your helmet that kind of covers up all the visible light and instead replaces it with this kind of almost disembodied camera floating in space where the ship is removed and you operate it that way. I think that would be a really cool mechanic. I mean, if I were in charge of it, or if I were the person directing the production, that's the direction I think that I would head in. And at the same time, would just allow people to kind of just buzz out over how beautiful Star Citizen can be on all the wavelengths. Just some thoughts. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.